first of all, friends, if you're interested in my GLP-1 journey, where I started and how I progressed, I have another video on this channel about that, and I will link this video that I'm talking about in the video that I'm making right now. So this is just going to be about recent things that have gone on with prior authorization issues for my Zepbound 7.5 medication. Now, Zepbound is Terzapatide. It's the same thing as Mounjaro. They're just licensed differently for different purposes. Zepbound is for weight loss for people who do not have diabetes, and Mounjaro also has a weight loss effect for people who do have diabetes. So that's the clarity on the medications. What is the problem? Well, in this video, I'm going to go over the problem, possible solutions, and next steps. And at the end of the video, I will share with you the silly reason for the denial of my medication authorization by my insurance company. And it all boils down to communication between the doctor and the insurance company. You may have gone through this. If you have, please do comment on the video and let me know what has happened with you. If there are any questions you have that you'd like me to research, I'm not a medical doctor. I am a doctor, but I'm not a medical doctor, but I'm happy to research the answers to those and just give you my personal feedback. It won't be medical advice. It'll only be from the point of view of a medical layperson and a fellow GLP-1 journeyer, right? Warrior. So yeah, the problem is that I went to my most recent physical and I had a current prescription for the GLP-1 medication. Zepbound. Terzapatide is the compound when the compound wasn't this big controversial thing that it is now, going through the court systems and everything. And I had the actual Eli Lilly medication that I have been taking since February of 2023. I had that prescription going into the doctor's office, and I just needed another prescription. That's where we start with this. Now, to be clear, I have lost 93 pounds in 2 years and a bit, 2 years and a bit, on this GLP-1 medication. Before that, my weight was higher. I hit a stall and decided to use the GLP-1 medications to help me move past what seemed to be an unsolvable plateau for me with weight loss. I do exercise lightly. I have a connective tissue disorder that affects my mobility, so I do use a wheelchair for most kinds of mobility. I can stand up. It's just very painful, and there is always the chance that joints associated with my legs, so my ankles and my knees, primarily a little bit of a problem also with the hips, will dislocate. So that's going to be important as we get toward the end of the video. So I had that going in. I had a prescription. I was getting the shots every week. And my doctor's appointment, my checkup, follow-up, physical is every 6 months. And so this was routine when I went in, but that routine physical triggers a lot of stuff with the insurance company. And so as a result of one really silly documentation error, I was denied coverage for refills of my prescription of Zepbound 7.5. So to set the scene for this, right, I go to the doctor's office. You can see a video of that where I've actually gone in, and I was sitting in the doctor's office and talking to people from the direction of this channel. And when I saw my doctor, everything was fine. Y'all, my A1C was phenomenal, and it has not always been. I have been pre-diabetic. My blood pressure was phenomenal, and I no longer take my blood pressure medication as a result of the 93-pound weight loss. I had fantastic cholesterol and triglyceride numbers. Numbers that had been marginal in the past were really, really good. Things that needed to be up were up. It was basically great lab work, and I was completely grateful and still am completely grateful for it. My thyroid, perfect. And all of these things have been things that have had issues in the past. And so what a testimonial to what that weight loss and the medication that helped me achieve that weight loss could accomplish, right? So that's my why, right, for having the medication in the first place, is how much having it has changed my life. As you know, if you're taking this medication, one of the biggest helps that it gives us is getting rid of the food noise, right? If that were the only thing it did for me, that would be enough, because food noise has been my constant companion until this medication for years and years due to chronic obesity, which we're learning more and more and more about. So when I went into this, I had the medication, and I don't want to belabor that point, but I do want to be specific. I may sneeze in a second, so let me get a tissue. So just to be straightforward about all of it, I have successfully had this medication in the past, and I want to be super grateful, even though I pay for the insurance and I pay for the doctor's visits with a copay. I want to be completely sure that everyone knows I'm grateful to have the medication and to have had the medication for this long. But having medication when you pay for the doctor, pay for the insurance, is not necessarily a privilege. Now, on the cosmic realm, right, it is a privilege to live in a first world country where so far, right, where I am able to get this medication. I have eternal gratitude to my creator for that. But when it comes to advocating for yourself, don't let the gratitude get in the way of knowing what you have earned and deserved on a temporal plane, right, for the things that you pay for and work hard for, or just as a human being should get, because we should be kind to each other and give each other the tools that are necessary to succeed, right? So having the prescription left the doctor's office, all is good. And then I get a call Thursday of the most recent week. So tomorrow is Friday for me. And when tomorrow hits, I will have been 2 full weeks without an injection. The most recent Friday, I was supposed to have an injection, and the Thursday of that week, my pharmacy got in touch with me and said, your prescription's been denied. Right. Now, up until that point, I had been told for several days, nay, about 2 weeks, that my prescription was in process before I hear from my pharmacy, your prescription has been denied. I called my doctor's office and said my prescription has been denied. I sent them a message in their portal and said, just want to let you know that this has happened. What are my next moves with this? And at that point, my doctor's office said, we will definitely check into this and see what's going on. So in the interim, I developed something called ZSH. If you've been watching my channel, you know about this. If not, there are videos about this. I had chicken pox when I was a young adult, and I got shingles, but it was a reactivation of chicken pox, and it did not break out a rash. I had the sensations, I had other symptoms that go along with shingles, but not the rash. Gratefully, thankfully, it's resolving now. It never was as bad as I have seen the cases that I've seen other people suffer with. And so I'm really grateful for that. So I go to the doctor and I see him for the physical, and then I go back to the doctor. But when I go back to the doctor to get tested for shingles, I am aware that this denial has occurred. And so I am in there speaking. Not only have I sent the message and called the office, but I am there speaking with the physician's assistant because my doctor was on vacation. So I let pretty much everyone in the office know that I need help with this appeal for the medication, and just perplexed about why I've been turned down, because I just had a successful visit. I have maintained 5% of my body weight and weight loss and then some, right? So I've met all the goals. My test results look good. I have sleep apnea, which is another issue that has been largely resolved by weight loss, but it's another issue that can help with the authorization of a Zepbound prescription. So the office tells me a variety of things. By this point, I've also gotten 2 rather rude messages back from my doctor's nurse. And, I'm a really laid back person. I don't think that I take things super personally. I'm a teacher. I'm a college professor. I've been doing that for nearly 30 years. And so you have to kind of develop a thick skin. And I try to stay really focused and boundaried and intentional about my communication with other people. And I don't want to descend into anger. I can be frustrated, but I'm going to keep myself calm in these situations. That doesn't always make people super happy or comfortable. When you say things that are true, tell me if you know that this is the case. When you say things that are true but are uncomfortable to hear, people don't know how to respond when you're not angry, because the response, I guess, that folks are waiting to give is a defensive response because the person speaking with them is angry, raising their voice, maybe using foul language, things like that. But I'm not doing any of those things. I'm just saying, you know, y'all are always telling me I'm so loved. This does not make me feel loved, and let me tell you why. And that tone of voice, it really confuses people, y'all. And I have found that to be the case for a couple of decades now. When you keep your calm demeanor and you keep your cool, but you just speak from your heart and are vulnerable and open about how you're feeling with logical reasons behind it, people don't always know how to take that. I tend to speak in essays as an English teacher, so I'm going to have a thesis and support, right? And that's what I did. And, it seemed like they were willing to help me, regardless of the fact that the nurse keeps messaging me. And of course, I know the nurse is a messenger, but the message can be delivered more effectively, right? Keeps messaging me about how they're not going to work with me. So here are the two things I hear from the nurse. I hear, we no longer appeal medications for patients, and we do not do peer-to-peer communication with insurance companies. If you don't know what a peer-to-peer communication is, my insurance company gives me a number, and the doctor or the nurse or another clinician in the situation or an administrative person in the doctor's practice can call this number, hit the prompts, which I provide as well. So I'm sending in my message to the nurse, to the doctor, via the nurse, I'm sending the number that needs to be called, the prompts on the phone, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, that need to be pressed, and the things that the insurance company need to have done, right, for this appeal to be properly processed. And so I've done that, and I've been told that no, we do not use peer-to-peer services. Again, that is the doctor's office directly calling the insurance via a special line with special prompts to give direct information to the person on the other end of the telephone line. So they don't do that. And then I'm told, as I might have mentioned a little earlier, we don't appeal these medicines. Well, my first response to that is, if you're not going to appeal medication approvals for your patients, why do you prescribe that medication? I mean, if you said up front in your practice, we do not prescribe GLP-1 medications because we do not want to appeal them, I would totally understand that. Like, y'all, my gynecologist no longer does surgery, and he was very straightforward. I'm no longer going to be a surgical gynecologist, an OB gynecologist. So if that's a problem, this is not the practice for you. So letting people know that so they can make plans to go to a new practice. And that's what I'm saying about these communications between the doctor's office and the insurance company. My doctor's office was saying, we're not doing that anymore. And, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with prescribing a medication you're not willing to appeal and spend the time to go to bat for your patients. And let me give you an analogy with that from my perspective. I'm a college professor. I teach college English, composition, and literature. Occasionally, I teach some other things. I also teach dramatic reading, for example, is within my humanities purview and within my area of expertise. My students also count on me to be an academic advisor for them. So what that means is that every semester when they're ready to register, they can get me to help them, but it also means they can get me to help them with other things, like transfer to a 4-year institution because I work at a 2-year institution. They can come back after they've been my student and they've been transferred out and go, I'm now going to do graduate work. Dr. Patty, I need you to help me figure out how I'm going to get that done. And I will help them, y'all. I will sit with them as long as it takes. I will help them with their essays as much time as I have to take. I give incredibly direct and specific and kind feedback. I help my students when they're frustrated. I help my students when they're worried, when they're concerned, when they're mad, when they think they are not going to succeed at another institution, whatever it may be. I am there for them. I have been oh my gosh, probably at this point, I don't know how many thousands of phone calls to get my students the services they need. If they are suddenly, for some reason, victims of homelessness, I will work on that with them. If they don't have enough food to eat, I will work with them on that as well. I am there for the whole person that my student is. Now, I use that example because that is how I should be. That is how people who are educators should behave. And I know there's a difference between the shoulds and reality. But with healthcare, how much more important is it to help people, to be there for the long haul, to be invested in people's outcomes? If I can do that as an educator, I know that healthcare providers can do that as healthcare providers. I am eminently aware that I do not know what all goes into being a healthcare provider. But I also know that when you choose to invest in people, it means that you have to love them. You have to love them and you have to mean it. And when you love people, the way you care about them changes, right? So that is my little analogy about why this is such a big issue, right? That doctors will prescribe medications that they say are necessary for you to be healthy in your unique circumstance, and then not be willing to work peer to peer with the insurance company or to appeal a denial based on a lack of, and here's the next part, a lack of documentation. That was the whole issue and is the whole issue for my current denial for Zepbound 7.5 is a lack of documentation. And so what is that documentation? I couldn't find out from my doctor's office what it was they thought it might be. And the insurance company, I made many calls to them, right? The pharmacy, they're just waiting for the prescription. But I made many calls asking, what is it that you need to hear? Telling my doctor, this is what they say they need to hear. My doctor's saying, we've said that and it's not enough. They're still denying. So I am in the middle of my doctor's office and my insurance, and you have probably found yourself here too if you're an adult responsible for other people in a country that has for-profit insurance companies. So, and we're in America, we're some of the last of that kind, right? And there are other issues in other countries, but single payer is the answer. We just have to figure out how that works for America. But I digress, and I don't want to do that. I want to stay on topic. So I am thinking about next steps, and what I tell my doctor's office is, I want to be a part of my own solution. Again, part of the solution, not part of the problem. And so if you're telling me that you will not appeal, and the insurance company is telling me that they will not prescribe without an appeal, then I'm going to need to find a new doctor's office. And I said this with the same calm and the same speaking the truth in love is what the Bible tells us to do. And that is what I was doing the entire time. Not getting angry, not calling names, just being very direct and very kind and advocating for myself, and being respectful of the human being to whom I'm speaking in every given situation. And so by the time it's all said and done, I go away with this kind of, look, we'll see what we can do, right? From the physician's assistant, who's lovely, and someone who was shadowing her, training with her, they were lovely. One of the people who's a medical assistant in the office also was helping me. Lots of lovely helpers, but the people who needed to help weren't doing the things they needed to do. And at that point, my doctor was on vacation. He's back today. And as I bring you this news of what actually happened and the silly reason that I promised you toward the end of this video, that the documentation is not complete, my doctor has now said we no longer do that, but there's more. And when my doctor said that and communicated that to someone else, and that someone else who used to be my student called me with trepidation to tell me that, I said, well, I am going to have to find another doctor's office, and I'm going to have to do it as soon as I can. I really didn't want to go through telehealth with this because my insurance covers this medication with a zero out-of-pocket cost to me. Right? How can I go to paying $500 a month for the medication when I know that that's possible just with the correct documentation, right? I might be willing to do that if I knew I couldn't get that medication through my insurance. And I'm so sorry that there are people who can't, right? I'm super grateful that I have that opportunity. But if I'm not having those two entities that are crucial to that working with me, what are we going to do, right? So I tell the office that and say, I'll let you know when I am moving forward what is going to happen with this and when I need my medical records and things like that, being again kind and considerate the entire time. Well, I get a call back. I didn't expect to get a call back, but I get a call back from the office that says, and y'all tell me what would bother you about this, right? It says, this is what the person has been told to say to me. This one time we'll try again. Really? Gonna do me a favor, are you? That just totally hit me the wrong way. But again, I wasn't unkind. I said, Oh my goodness, can you see why that way of expressing that might bother me? And the student said, yeah, I can. And I didn't want to say it, right? But this is what I've been told to say. So, okay, well, what has to happen? Y'all, here was the whole problem. The whole time, this was the problem, the silly little problem I promised to tell you about. It was because I'm in a wheelchair. When I come into the office, I see the scale. It's not a scale I can step on without hurting myself. And so they ask me, have you weighed today? And I say yes, because I always do that when I go to the doctor's office, because I'm aware that these problems might arise from my mobility limitations. And they say, okay, what was your weight today? Sometimes I look at my app, but most of the time I'm remembering it because I do put in an app on my phone, an app called Lose It, which is really good and inexpensive, where I track my calories and things like that. And I say my weight, right, which is currently 258 pounds. Really happy with that, by the way. And they write it down. Well, when they write it down in my records, apparently they write it down as stated weight. And that is not what the insurance company, of course, wants to hear, because I could be lying. I could be lying. But to my knowledge, my doctor did not have a set of scales that would accommodate my mobility issue. And so the person who called me said, well, if we could get your actual weight. And I'm like, what do you mean my actual? We have my actual weight. And she says, no, it says stated weight. And I went, wait a minute. Wait. A minute. Seriously? So this entire time, this problem has been because you didn't have a scale I could step on or roll on or stand up with assistance on and get an accurate weight. She was like, oh no, we have that scale. What? Yeah, we have a scale in the back in one of the offices that is one for people with mobility issues who can stand up. Again, I can stand up. It's just painful. I'm willing to use a scale that has mobility assist with it. I would have been willing to go to another facility to get another clinician to, confirm that that's my actual weight. So tomorrow morning, which is a Friday, on my way to go to another doctor's appointment, I am going to, with the disembodied voice, go to this doctor's office and try to do the path of least resistance. If they actually look at my weight and write it down, that is what apparently is needed to get this prescription approved and filled. I'm glad I know. I'm glad I know. It was just that they had not told me, oh no, we need to look at your weight. So let's get you either to a facility where you can do that, or let's reveal to you that we have this magical scale hidden back in an office that you can use right here in this office. Y'all, the audacity, the unmitigated gall of it all. So I will let you know in part 2 of this saga, of this video series, what happens with my prescription. Tomorrow I will go and get that recorded. Then I will absolutely make sure that they're going to fax that into the insurance company. And then I will absolutely call the insurance company and see what the decision is based on my actual weight, which should be a yes. It should be a ding. Yes, thank you for playing. Here's your medication. Right? And again, I will let you know if that is what happens or what happens in the long run. What I wanted to say before I sign off of this video, though, is that I worry so much about people, those of you maybe, who are in a vulnerable situation. And when you get these sorts of messages from your insurance companies and your doctors, that you just might think that you can't get this medication when it's just advocating for yourself is all that's needed. Do you have people that advocate for you? Because it is so important if you're not able to advocate for yourself. Oh my goodness. Because not everyone has the emotional tools to, and that's not weakness, it's just we're all different, to go to bat for themselves this way. So I'm concerned. I'm concerned about that, and it makes me want to become an advocate for people in those situations and to advocate on a volunteer basis in those ways, in any ways I can to help. I hope that you know how loved you are. My goodness, you are so loved. I hope that this video helped you with anything that you may be going through that's similar, or that you just like the chat, right, to hear what's going on in someone else's life. Please do continue to go with me in peace and love to serve others. Please pray for our whole wide world, our nation, the state of our healthcare, and whisper a special intention for the beautiful Ukraine.